Hey noobs, Mr. Frog here. Today, we're going to be taking a look at Dungeon Vixens, a new dungeon crawler game developed by Dual Arcade and published by Shady Corner Games. The game is not censored by default on Steam, so no patches are necessary before playing. You can jump straight into the game right after installing. Now, the game features both controller and keyboard support, with myself finding keyboard controls a bit more comfortable. Virtually all controls can be accessed near the WASD keys though, for both movement, inventory, and combat, which while not being the easiest to perform, does qualify this game as being one-hand playable. As for the story, Dungeon Vixens begins with a brief cutscene introducing us to its main character, mourning the loss of his love. He overhears of a legend of a monster queen's labyrinth that can grant the wish of anyone who explores and conquers it. Desperate to revive his love, the adventurer sets off to brave this dungeon. Throughout the game, you will also occasionally come across additional lore tablets that will reveal further information on both the dungeon and the monster queen within. The story for the game is admittedly rather minimal, but it does do a good job at creating an interesting backstory for both its main character and the dungeon itself. Additionally, there are also a few side quests to complete, and also multiple endings that add a bit of a replay value. As you progress through the dungeon, you will of course find treasure and secrets abound. Often, you will find hidden rooms behind certain walls, as well as a few puzzles that use levers to unlock rooms with treasure. There are many secrets to look out for as you play, to encourage exploration of each room without rushing through the dungeon. There will also be the occasional trap as well as treasure room guarded by powerful enemies that you can either fight for the reward or use a clever invisibility potion to sneak past. If you do choose to fight though, then combat in the game is a bit different than most other dungeon crawlers in that it takes the form of a skill-based timing system. You must properly time your attacks and balance a slider for defense. This combat can be a bit awkward to get used to at first, but once you get the hang of it, it is a rather simple system that offers a very high skill ceiling to master. Perfectly timing an attack will almost guarantee a high damage critical strike, while perfectly balancing your defense slider will negate almost all damage. Even with a perfect guard though, I do want to say that you do still seem to take some amount of damage here, but it is so low to as barely be impactful. I think whether or not you enjoy this combat system will more than likely make or break your enjoyment for the game. While I personally did enjoy this system and found it to be fun, I can see this not being a combat system that everyone will enjoy. Also, while I did enjoy the combat system, I would have liked to see a bit more variety in combat, with additional mechanics possibly being added to later enemies. Most fights will largely play out the same, and that you will try to time your hit as closest to the center as possible, and then try to balance the defense slider closest to the center as well. I will say though, that the game does offer additional strategy through its scroll system. Along your journey, you can either find or purchase magical scrolls that will apply various debuffs to enemies, such as lowering defense or attack power. Depending on the type of enemy you are fighting, a well-used scroll can make a big difference, such as debuffing an enemy with a very high defense, or lowering the attack of a powerful enemy. I did enjoy the additional level of strategy that these scrolls provided to the game. If you are successful in combat, you will not only be rewarded with coins, but also an H-scene, which leads us onto the real content of this game, the H-content. The H-scenes in Dungeon Vixens primarily occur after defeating a monster in combat. There are over 20 different monster girls in the dungeon, with each of them having their own unique scenes. The scenes are admittedly a bit more on the simple side, taking the form of brief looping GIFs, without customization options either. Quality also varies a bit here between the different monsters, with some being a little bit better than others. While simplistic though, they definitely fall in line with the retro vibe that the game has, so I personally did not mind them, and found many of them to be creative and charming, but for those looking for more in-depth H scenes, they may not satisfy. I did also enjoy the wide variety of monster types Dungeon Vixens had to offer, ranging from your standard succubi, all the way to slime girls and even Dullahans. In addition to the combat H scenes, the game also does contain some optional side quests that probably reward the highest quality H content in the game, so I definitely recommend looking out for these on your playthroughs. Also, for you short stack goblin enjoyers out there, the game also features a goblin merchant that you can romance, provided you have the necessary amount of coin to satisfy her. Overall, Dungeon Vixens succeeds in creating a fun and charming retro-style dungeon crawler adventure game for those looking for a quick game to play in a single afternoon. It is a simple yet skill-based combat system that rewards those who master it. H-scenes do leave a bit to be desired, but the art and design of the Monster Girls is very well done, and with the addition of its fantastic soundtrack, definitely capture a good retro old school vibe. While the game is not overly groundbreaking, is a bit on the shorter side, and definitely has a few areas it could improve upon, it still provides a very fun and enjoyable experience for its relatively low price point at around only $6 USD on Steam. If a retro-style dungeon crawler filled with monster girls sounds at all appealing to you, then I definitely say this one is worth checking out. With that being said, Mr. Frog awards this game a Mr. Frog sip of approval. Once again, thank you to everyone for all the support, and if you'd like to see more H content, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Also, make sure to check out the Mr. Frog stream over on Twitch. Later, noobs.